What's your favorite kind of pie?
I enjoy a pumpkin pie. I'm a very autumnal person.
Do you eat pumpkin in like March?
I eat pumpkin seeds pretty much every day.
Okay, but you don't you kind of wait for the pumpkin to grow. You're like, I don't
No,
have
I gotta
time.
have it now.
This guy
Gotta get that in
gotta eat
me.
that seed.
Gotta get that gourd in
It'll
me.
it'll grow later.
I got that
Yeah, I
gourd
don't
in
have
me.
time. Just have time to watch a pumpkin grow. Jesus, I look like Mr. Pumpkin
Takes
Farmer.
pumpkins a long time to grow. You gotta wait for them to germinate, and then they gotta get big enough, and then you can plant them outside. It's a process.
Yeah, but and also nobody wants them when they're not November.
No, but I do because I like the pumpkin seeds.
Yeah, but not everybody. Yeah, but you like the seeds.
Yeah,
Like who's like, oh, I gotta get this pumpkin pie in like February. You know
I'd
what I
eat pumpkin
mean?
pie in February. I also enjoy a good like soup, a good like pumpkin soup.
Pumpkin soup is nice.
Yeah.
I like pumpkin soup.
Hi
Yeah.
everybody, welcome to Smart Avengers. My name is Corey, and with me is Dylan. Dylan, how's it going?
Pie. Good. Let's talk about pie.
Just talking about pie. We were talking specifically about
Hmm.
pumpkins for a moment there.
Well, I started off with pie.
You did start about pie, but it turned into pumpkins because that's where
Hmm.
I drove the conversation. As you may notice, you do
Yeah.
not see the face of a certain Lebowski underneath us. It's because John couldn't make it today, Dylan. Do you any idea why
It's
John
good.
couldn't make it?
Yes, I do. He had a terrible bowling accident.
A bowling accident.
Yes.
Does he have a hook for a hand like Kingpin now?
No.
Okay.
Much worse bowling accident.
Oh, geez.
Very tragic. Some people died.
Some
Not
people did.
John, obviously, but
No, he's just at
some
the
some people that legally that
he's
like to name them for legal reasons.
He's at the police station right now filing reports why he's not here with us because he has to testify.
He's at the police station doing something. I don't know what it is. I couldn't possibly speculate, but he's busy and may or may not be responsible for the deaths of several people in a bowling alley. So he'll be back. I think next time. Because that guy's untouchable. You can't keep him down.
No, you can't. You can't
People have
keep John
tried.
down. There are movies to watch, and he's got to be
No,
there to watch them.
you can't do it in prison,
No, you don't get
and
as
he's
many
not going
channels.
to. No, you don't get to choose what film you watch.
Yeah,
It's just like Cool Hand Luke again, you
I
know.
mean, although I don't know if I'd show Cool Hand Luke if I was in prison. I feel like you might give people the
Well,
wrong idea.
that's the irony of it.
Yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
feel
irony or whatever.
it. Also, if you've ever looked at John's letterbox, you would see it doesn't seem like John picks what he wants to watch either. It just seems to be whatever happens to be going on at the time.
Well, he picked Despicable Me.
1 through 4.
Like, I get seeing like the first one just out of like morbid curiosity. He saw four of them.
John is a completionist. We know this about him because he almost has like a complete Daredevil run, for God's sake, you know? So he's a completionist.
Yeah,
He's going to see it through to the bitter end.
he's a character for sure.
Absolutely. So, as you could guess, with
Hmm.
John not being here, this is going to be a -1 episode. -1 episodes are usually a little less structured, a little less formal, a little loosey goosey.
Yeah.
So, uh,
And we are definitely some loose geese.
we
That's what
are
they say.
the loosest.
Hmm.
That being said, earlier today, at the time of recording, I just posted a new #1 for a comic called Odin by Image Comics. And it is, as I was kind of telling you about before we started recording, it's kind of doing something that I don't know if it can achieve, which is I think it wants us to be sympathetic for the characters in the book. So, as a quick rundown, Odin is a story about a young investigative journalist who infiltrates a group of neo Nazis and follows them on their trip to a Norwegian campground to summon Odin, essentially. And things go awry. And it's kind of a horror movie, tropes. When you get introduced to the characters, they're all neo Nazis, but they all have sort of the roles on the team. Like, there's the funny guy, there's the dumb, tough guy, they're the two characters that just want to have sex, like, etc. So they're fitting the slasher motif.
Mm.
And the question is like, I didn't think there was enough in this book that made me want to keep reading it, because I'm gonna have a hard time feeling any sort of sympathy for any of these characters, or wanting to see them succeed, save for the main character who's just there as a journalist. But even then, the kind of way she frames herself, it seems like she's kind of has an ego to her. I mean, she compares herself a little bit to Dr. Hunter S. Thompson in Gonzo Journalism by making herself a part of the story and all. So it seems like she kind of wants to get famous off of this story, as opposed to like more noble attempts at writing this article and exposing this sort of web of counterculture fascist youth groups. So yeah,
Yeah.
so we were kind of talking about like the idea of like, can you follow a book or follow characters that are unsympathetic?
Yes. Um. No. That's the end of the show. Great show.
Yeah, great show. It
So,
was quick to the
I
point.
love this here. You know. Um.
All right.
Yeah. It's a tough thing to ask of your audience because first of all, you have to find an audience that would be interested in reading stories about neo Nazis, and then you kind of have to garner that kind of sympathy for those characters is quite difficult because they're obviously very unsavory people. To be a neo-Nazi or a Nazi of any description is, I'm going to say, bad. And you can quote me on that.
Yep.
You can put that in the headlines.
Big bold
I don't
letters.
think it's cool to be a Nazi. And I think a lot of people probably share that sentiment and therefore may not be super excited to read a book like that, you know? Like you said, there's little cliffhangers and stuff. You're like, okay, cool, but it didn't make you want to read the rest of it
No,
because
no.
you're like, I don't care about these characters.
Yeah. So like that's kind of so to kind of every episode in number ones, I always reiterate what are the things I'm looking for. Do they do a great job of establishing the main character? Do they do a good job of establishing the world? And is there enough meat on the bone story wise that makes me want to read the next issue? And 2/3 of that book was establishing the characters and the world that we're in, and then the last third was what kind of threw us into the sequence of events that left to the cliffhanger. And I don't care. I don't care what happens to any of these characters at all, you know? And like I don't know if that's the approach they're going for, cuz like for example, if you ever watch like a Friday the 13th movie or like Nightmare on Elm Street, a lot of the time the characters you meet that make up the majority of the cast are all very shallow, one or two dimensional characters that are just existing to give Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger someone to kill. But you still have your main character, your final girl typically, who is there to garner the sympathy and to be the person you want to see make it through the end. And like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as I was kind of saying, I don't think the main investigative journalist character who's posing as a neo-Nazi, I don't I don't think there's enough that was established that made me really want to see her make it through this alive.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like,
It seems like that's the person they are framing it. They're not saying, oh, it's the Nazis that are the sympathetic ones. They are really saying it's this journalist that's the main character. But like you said, if they don't give you a reason to care about the journalist, then you're like, well, then nobody here is likable or interesting or makes you want to watch it anymore or
yeah.
read it anymore. Yeah.
So I've never considered I say with my fucking Halloween decorations on the wall, I never consider myself a real horror person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Demon Hand, Frankenstein. Never consider
You do
myself.
love Frankenstein.
There are reasons. Um, I've never considered myself a big horror person, but I've consumed a lot of horror media. Obviously, I've watched a lot of like really bad horror movies, and I've read a lot of horror comics. If not just because of New Number One, because it seems like that's the go-to third-party comic these days. Because Marvel and DC don't really like doing horror books up until recently. Um, I consume a lot of these, and I was trying to think of like, has there been other examples of here's this book and it's introducing me to all these characters, like for example, Pretty Hate Machine was a book that I read not that long ago for New Number Ones. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
like the Nine Inch Nails album.
Well, just
And
making sure.
yeah, and that one was sort of like a weird horror take on Hamlet to a degree, where basically this kid's dad dies, and his friends see this sort of like demonic apparition in the woods telling them to bring him there. And he shows up, and there's this demon with knives for fingers who tells him like, "Hey, your dad died, but your dad died because his friend killed him and is like moving in on your mom, and like, do you want revenge?" So sort of the take on King Hamlet and Hamlet, that whole interaction. And like in that
Yeah.
book, the characters they do introduce, they don't introduce them to such a degree where I feel strongly about them for the most part, except for the main character who you feel for. And because that is the case, he's like an artistic kid. He's going away to art school soon. He's going to be leaving his hometown behind, but he was very close to his dad, and it's like, I felt for him, and like that would be a
Mhm.
book I'd follow up on. Um, the Hab, that was another horror book that I read. That was from Bad Idea Comics. That one is sort of like the world is ending, and this billionaire years ago had a feeling this was going to happen, and he basically created this multi-billion-dollar bomb shelter near the Arctic that sort of like draws from this like hidden lake that's inside of a glacier kind of deal. And so you meet all the characters there, but all the characters are terrible because they're all like billionaires. There's like you meet his daughter who's like, traumatized because she saw nuclear weapons hit New York and her mom was there, so she knows her mom didn't make it. And like she's 17 years old and like the whole world has ended and like she's just alone in this bunker with all these scientists and stuff now. But you also find out that when like 15 years old, she was doing drugs and did a hit and run and killed some poor girl in Egypt, and like had her family like erase that ever happening and never took accountability for it. And the billionaire
Mhm.
himself's a piece of shit. His wife is like a drugged up actress, and like no one you meet no one that you want to see make through it. And like I had no desire to continue that. Um there was a book that I did read all the way through, and it was from IDW Comics called Red Shirts, and it was a Star Trek book. Because the gimmick with the red shirts are that they go on the away missions and never come back. So this book was a series of red shirts that were getting brought in to do a mission, and one of the characters was our main character, and he was one who had already been on a mission and got fucked up and like had to survive on his own on an alien planet for like 14 days and barely survived. So like he's already coming into this with a very jaded perspective. But it was sort of the classic horror movie tropes where you meet all these different cadets with all these different personality traits, and one by one they get picked off. But like that one was actually kind of compelling because they were all heroic
Mhm.
characters. Like they were all with the Federation in Starfleet, and like they were trying to do the mission, right? I don't know. I don't know what I'm getting at, I guess. I read a lot of horror stuff lately, and I feel like we get asked to follow these characters and care about them, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the tricky thing is whenever you're writing a book like that, maybe not specifically like the red shirts one. I'm not sure what themes they were trying to talk about other than Star Trek. But like that other one with like the billionaires and shit, like people are probably trying to make a specific because billionaires are pretty in the news these days, you know. And the same with the Nazi one. Nazis are kind of in the news these
A little bit.
days in the White House. And sorry, I'll cough there. We probably didn't pick it up.
That's fine.
And they're probably the writers are probably trying to make a broader point about two of these very important things. And the problem with that is those two people or those two groups of people are both insanely unlikable. I'm not going to say they're a one-to-one here, but I'm going to say that they're both very, very, very unpopular with, I would imagine, the majority of people. So if you're trying to write a book about them that will at some point critique them, you still have to write a book that includes them and introduces them. And that's the problem is that if you want to talk about this stuff and these current issues, you have to introduce very unlikable people into your book and run the risk of people like us going, I don't fucking want to read a book about billionaires or Nazis.
Yeah.
So that's I think an issue. I don't know what the red shirts one was. I would imagine very few of them were Nazis. Um, yeah, I don't know for sure. You never know. It's hard to know by looking at the guy,
I
but
mean, I can
you
I
know,
can break that down for you a little bit and tell you what the main crux of of it was. Essentially, what it was is that they were kind of put in a mission to find out who was stealing data off a satellite, but it very quickly became apparent that they were just there as bait. And it was the idea of like the armed services or the military using the people who volunteer to serve as nothing more than sacrificial lambs, like not valuing them
mhm.
as humans, or not as humans but as individual people, but just seeing them as resources that can be used and exploited and thrown away. That was at least the concerns of the main character, who had spent that 14 years surviving on his own before Starfleet found him.
Yeah. Okay, so probably
More of a critique on
not
the
quite as
military industrial complex, which is odd because it's about Star Trek, and Star Trek's a utopia, which is like
yeah.
that's one of those weird things. And I know you're not a space person, so I'll try to keep this as short as I can, but that was like a critique I had about the book, is like trying to present the idea that Starfleet was corrupt, but it's like this is a utopia. That doesn't fit into the established setting.
Okay.
That's more of a Star Wars idea. Like I could see like the Rebel Alliance having to do something like that, but not Starfleet, which is again in a utopia. Moving forward,
Sure.
I know you hate space stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with all of the points you made with those specific things. Of which I know so much about.
Sure.
Very knowledgeable about the things that you just said.
Well, okay. Let's
So,
let's let's change the argument a little bit, right? We'll take it back to Marvel, and
okay.
let's go to Marvel and DC for a moment. Marvel and
Mm-hmm.
DC in recent years have been publishing more books from the perspective of not necessarily villains but anti-heroes. They've
Yeah.
been since like the 90s. So, you always think of like Venom, Lethal Protector. That was like the first real big one. Punisher War Journal, that's a big one. Um,
Yeah.
on the DC side, of course, you have Lobo, and they've put out Joker comics, multiple Joker comics. And again, like, how do you find yourself rooting for a character who's a homicidal maniac? Like, that's what you're being asked to follow.
Yes. Yes. I feel like that's always, but that seems to be different because that a lot of that becomes like I don't know if it's like wishful thinking or whatever, but like whenever you do see something like that, you see like the Punisher like mowing down a bunch of people with a machine gun, or Wolverine just like cutting people's faces off, or um Venom just eating people's brains. There's there's like a coolness factor to it. There's something cool about those characters, despite like the mindless violence. There is this edge to them where you're like, yeah, I like this. Like they're doing bad stuff, but you still like them in a weird way. There's just something about the characters, and it could be like the design or the way they're written, or just the way they're doing stuff. But there is something about them that makes you not empathize with the character, but like kind of like um what's the phrase for it where you're kind of like you want to be in their shoes, you know? You're like, boy, I don't want to be a homicidal maniac guy, but like, like you kind of fantasize about that, I guess. It's like wish fulfillment,
Wish
I
fulfillment.
think
Okay.
is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that sounds about
That
right.
kind of thing. You know what I mean? You're like, yeah, wouldn't that be cool if one day I had claws and I just cut people's faces open? I don't, and I will never do that. But wouldn't it be cool if I did? Um, which is that kind of action and comic-y thing that you can get away with, but isn't the same as here's a busload of neo-Nazis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Literally a busload of
that
neo Nazis. That's when you meet them all. They're on a bus.
yeah, like that doesn't translate into like, boy, I wish I was one of those guys because some of the people reading it might be those bus full of Nazis. Um,
Well, and that was another thing, is like the book doesn't. I mean, the book immediately, she does point out how pathetic they are. Like, she's like a journalist, so she's there to cover a story. She's only pretending to be a part of them, and she kind of is pointing out, like, like how each of them are like either sad or pitiful in a way. Like, they're just a bunch of rich
Yeah.
kids. And then they actually, like, they stop at a place and one of their friends get on that she hasn't met before, and he's like a dyed-in-the-wool Nazi. So, like, because he's actually enough that makes her worry that her cover is not good enough to get by him. So, like, there is an element of that as well. Like, they're not portrayed as being cool or anything like that. So it's like, I guess maybe
Yeah.
that's the angle that they were hoping for, or Tynan and so it's James Tynan the Fourth and Marguerite Bennett. If that was the angle they were hoping for, that like you would kind of like feel sad for them because obviously like they didn't maybe
They're
they
so
didn't actually
pathetic.
mean this shit. They're just like edgelords.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But again, though, like that's a tough angle to take because you're like, oh well, you know, I should feel sorry for these horrible people just because they're actually like stupidly pathetic. You like,
Yeah,
then you're like, I don't know if that's.
I don't know what message that
I don't
sends.
think you should. Yeah, I don't think you should reward
Ignorance.
terrible behavior just because. Yeah, just because they're just pathetic people. Like I'm like, I don't think that's fair
Yeah.
to anybody. You know.
So
Um, I tell you one thing I did want to talk about. Um, whenever you were bringing up Marvel and DC,
sure.
I think there was a character. We're gonna talk about Spider-Man.
We just said we weren't going to talk about Spider-Man.
I said I wasn't gonna talk about
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane as Venom.
Okay.
So as long as that sentence doesn't remain in the podcast, I will have kept my promise. Um, but related to that, in a roundabout way, there was a character introduced by Marvel Comics fairly recently, um, that everybody fucking hated. Right? We could all agree. And what's unusual about it is I don't think the character itself was written terribly. It wasn't like a unsympathetic person. It just seemed like a regular dude.
Yeah.
Uh, by Paul.
Oh,
It was
that's
in
not
the
the angle. I
Spider-Man
thought
comic.
we were talking about somebody else. I didn't think we were talking about Paul.
Who did you think we were talking
I thought
about?
you were going to bring up Null, the King in Black,
No,
because
no,
he's a
no, no.
villain who got his own book.
Well, we can circle back to that
Okay.
because I think that what we were talking about originally was like unsavory characters.
Being asked to be
Uh,
sympathetic to unsavory characters.
yes, yes, and so I think Null for sure kind of fits into that. So we can circle back to him. But I wanted to bring up Paul because that's kind of a character where they wrote him as like he was gonna be like I would assume more of a main character than he was, or some sort of like important character, and nobody liked him. Like just the way they crowbarred him in and the way they kind of introduced him and kept him around. Nobody was a big fan of Paul, and again, it's not because he was an unsympathetic character. He just seemed like a regular dude.
Yeah.
But the problem was nobody got on board with Paul at all. To the point where, spoiler alert, very recently, Paul dies.
Yeah.
And not only did people not care about his death, they were actually kind of celebrating it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that is like the opposite of what you want. You want to introduce this character and get people behind him so that whenever he does eventually die, it feels emotional and you feel regret that the character is gone. People didn't feel any of that. They were unsympathetic towards this guy, and then he died, and they were like, "Fucking, finally, finally, he's dead." Oh my god, why didn't he die earlier? And I think that's a very interesting thing too, because like I said, he wasn't written to be an unsavory character. He's not a neo-Nazi or a billionaire. He was just a guy. But in terms of what we're talking about, he just didn't garner any sympathy or empathy or any kind of positive emotion from the audience at
Yeah.
all. It
Well,
was either like straight up indifference or like real hatred of this character.
well, I mean,
There was no positive traits.
the fact of the matter is the character was doomed to do that anyway because Paul was introduced for the sole purpose of effectively keeping Mary Jane and Peter Parker separated. And there's a
Right.
huge base, a huge, huge, huge part of the fan base that they never wanted Peter and Mary Jane to be separated in the first place. You know, like, let alone having their marriage nullified, you know? So, like, to
We should
introduce
talk
this
about that
character...
at some point.
Huh?
So we should talk about that at some
Oh,
point.
about comic book marriages? Yeah, that's coming up, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
that'll
yeah,
be
so,
good.
like, he was
Yeah.
doomed to fail because there was already a huge section of the fan base who were going to hate him regardless of whatever, like, gimmicks or neat gifts they gave him. Like, oh, he's a genius inventor or some shit. I don't care. He's the guy that's, like, there's a lot of, like, Paul cucking memes. Like, Paul cucked Peter. Whatever.
Well, yeah.
It
I mean,
doesn't
that's
matter.
meme culture for you.
That's meme culture for you. That's Marvel Reddit there for you. Anyway, when you first were bringing this up, I thought you were talking about Null, because Null was introduced as the big bad for Venom, and then Null has his own comic now. And I was going to talk about, like, the Joker comics, about, you know, going back to that whole deal of, like, how do you, like, get people to read from this character's perspective? So, like, the Joker ones were really interesting because the first Joker comic, he wasn't the main character. The Joker was sort of like the shark in Jaws. He was only there in brief moments and flashes. The story was from Jim Gordon's perspective. So Commissioner Jim Gordon, who at this point was no longer commissioner for Gotham City, but was acting as a private investigator, was following the Joker around the world effectively. He was being hired by this independent party, essentially, to bring in the Joker. So, like, that was his plot. His plot line was to bring in the Joker, and he would only catch glimpses of him. And that was effective, because you have a character people really love, which is Jim Gordon. You still give him Joker in the bits and flashes, which is, as you've pointed out in the past, Joker works best in bits and flashes. The second Joker comic, there were two Jokers, because one of them wakes up after getting shot in the head. And so you're following them simultaneously. There's a Joker in Los Angeles who's, like, creating all this chaos and havoc, and there's this Joker in Gotham who woke up with a head wound and doesn't, you know, and isn't sure what the fuck happened. And so you find out that the Joker that got shot in the head was actually just a regular guy that the Joker, like, had hired and then, you know, cosmetically fucked up his face so he looked like him, and then was for a job, and then was disposing of him afterwards. But he woke up with his head wound thinking he was actually Joker. So, like, that one was an okay comic as well, because you weren't really following the Joker, you were more following this fake version of him, and that was fine. Because that one, they also introduced, like, Red Hood and Batgirl and other people, like, whose perspectives you were getting as they were trying to make sense out of all that, too. So, like, that was fine. But it's definitely not the first time that DC tried to make a Joker comic happen. But, like, they do it with Deathstroke the Terminator, and Deathstroke the Terminator is a pedophile. His fan base hates it when you point it out, but it's fucking truth. It is. It's a fucking truth. Because Judas Contract, the most famous Teen Titans storyline of all time with Tara the Traitor, he was having sex with Tara, who was established at 16 years old. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool guy, Deathstroke the Terminator. Pedophile. Sorry, he is. Deathstroke fans can be as mad as they fucking want, but it's truth.
I don't think you need to apologize for that.
I'm not going to. They get so mad when you point it out. It's like, I'm sorry your boy likes teenage girls. Now, obviously, the point of it was that she was just, like, infatuated with him, and he was manipulating her, and having sex with her was a way of keeping her under his thumb. That was established that Deathstroke's that kind of asshole. Because he also, like, slept with his son's fiance and shit, doing stuff like that, too. Deathstroke's a terrible person, yes. Deathstroke has multiple children. Ravager, Jericho, and Rose. Terrible dad.
Cool.
Terrible dad.
It certainly seems that way.
Yeah, it amazes me. There's a Deathstroke the Terminator comic right now that just started recently. It amazes me that we have so many Deathstroke comics, because he's, like, kind of the quintessential of this, of, like, he's a terrible person. Unrepentant. Yeah. Unrepentant. Yet people read along. I read the first one they did after Rebirth that Christopher Priest was writing, and it was really well written because it's Christopher Priest and the dude knows what he's fucking doing. But like, yeah, Deathstroke's a terrible human being, and the whole comic was about how he was a terrible human being. Like one of those things, like his wife who hates him and is like trying to kill him most of the time, reminds him how terrible he is. It's like it's your fault our son died. It's your fault our children hate you.
So that raises the question then: why would people want to read that book if it is just about this guy who is what we're talking about, a very unlikable, unsavory character? Like, why would people want to read that book? Is it just what we said earlier about the anti-hero things? We're like, yeah, he's a horrible person, but he kills people in cool ways, so that's cool. Like, is that one of those things where like they just they're not empathizing with him because he's so horrible? They're just like um wish for fulfillment in the cool stuff that he does.
I mean, so it kind of some of the biggest successful television shows in the last 20, 30 years have been Mad Men and Breaking Bad. Are you familiar with those shows?
I know that those shows exist.
Okay. It's basically kind of like they're both in the same ilk of like people really like them, but the main characters are terrible human beings. The main character of Mad
Yeah.
Men is Don Draper. Don Draper is an ad salesman in a very upscale New York marketing agency. But
Mhm.
the main thing is about how like he is a womanizer and a liar and a manipulator and has all of these big depressive episodes. But it's like everything that goes wrong in his life is his fault. But he's
Yeah.
smooth, he's charming, he's handsome, he can get any woman he wants, people respect him, and like that's how he's like counterbalancing these sides of him. There's like the carnal side that gets everything that he wants, and then there's the negative side where he ruins everything he has because he doesn't feel like he should have it. But people love Don Draper and they love that he's so cool and confident and able to like smooth talk his way through situations. Breaking Bad, of course, is the story of a high school chemistry teacher who has cancer and decides to start selling meth on the side to pay for his cancer treatments, and then falls in love
Mhm.
with being a drug lord. And the whole show is the escalation of this persona he's crafted for himself that becomes larger in life as
Yeah.
he gets bigger and bigger in the underground. Um, Also, terrible human being. Walter White is pathetic and cowardly and egotistical and conniving and a liar and a manipulator. But people love those shows.
Well, that one you can see because there, like you said, there is an escalation. There's an obvious like drama to it. You can see if somebody like A has cancer and B is running their own math lab, you're like, okay, cool. At some point, he's either gonna die slash get very sick, or he's gonna get busted. And so part of the cliffhangery nature of that show is you want to see what happens to this man. You want to see if he does get his comeuppance. You want to see what's going to happen next. It's not necessarily that people love and empathize with that character specifically. It's that the TV show has such a really good hook to it. It's really well written and interesting. And it makes you want to watch more to see what happens, to see what happens to that guy. You don't necessarily empathize with him, but you understand the world around him and how it works, and watching him slip in and out of adventures and get his way out of stuff. You want to see what happens if he will continue to get his way out of situations, or if he will at some point get his comeuppance. I can see the attraction to that show.
Well, I mean
You
that's
know,
that's an age old thing that Alfred Hitchcock talked about how if you present people a story where you have a safe cracker who's trying to open a safe, and you also know that the audience sees that the people that he's breaking into are coming home, then your natural inclination is to side with the safecracker, even though what he's doing is morally wrong, because you want him to be able to open
right,
the safe, get what he needs, and get out. So like because you're
right.
seeing it from Walter's perspective, you're rooting for him in that sense of like he's the person whose journey you're following.
Kind of like the safecracker. I don't think you're really. You want to see what happens to the safecracker. You want to see if he gets busted or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're necessarily rooting for safecracker. Like, yeah, rob that guy.
That was
Again, it
Hitchcock's
kind of
argument,
depends on
though.
who. Well, it
You
depends
feel
who he's
nervous
robbing,
on
doesn't
his
it?
behalf. That's what he said. You're nervous on his behalf.
Well, yes, you feel some sort of tension because you can
Yes.
see the two sides coming. You can see the other guy coming closer to his own house, and you can see the safecracker like maybe missing a number or whatever. You can see all that. Like that makes sense. I don't know if they're necessarily like rooting for the guy to break the safe. They just want to see what happens because there is that tension there, and they want to see, does he fuck it up or not? Does he get caught or not? Does he get away with it? I don't think that's necessarily like empathizing with the character, if you know what I mean.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
like I said, I don't think that in that analogy, I don't think you're like rooting for the people to come home more so that you're rooting for him to get what he needs to get out. But yeah,
Are we gonna bust open Alfred Hitchcock being a big hack?
I guess so is what you're
Is
saying.
that,
That's what you're propositioning right now.
is
He
that
didn't
the
know what the
show?
fuck he was talking about.
Alfred Hitchcock? What a fucking prick! He has no dick. That guy,
He didn't know dick
I'll
about
write you a
shit.
film. No, talk about birds and whatever. That's bullshit. What's he know?
What's so scary about a
What
bird?
does Alfred Hitchcock know about films?
What's he ever done in the
Nothing.
What's he ever done in the business?
Yeah.
What money
What
did
was
he
this big
draw?
film? Yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, yeah. Who did he ever put over?
Who
Who you
did he
talking
ever
about?
It's got the pin, brother.
Alfred Hitchcock. I didn't. I'll be honest with you, dude. When we started this show like fucking years ago, I didn't expect me to start picking fights with Alfred Hitchcock. That's a fun surprise. I mean, I often wonder going into the episode, I'm like, I wonder who I'm just gonna pick an imaginary fight with today, because it's always somebody.
It's always somebody.
Yeah,
You're like that.
Alfred Hitchcock.
You're the little like fighting Irish mascot. You're just ready to
Yeah,
go.
but come on, that's
That's
stereotyping.
that's the thumbnail.
Well, it was gonna be something to do with Alfred Hitchcock for sure. Me fighting Alfred Hitchcock in a boxing ring.
There you go.
Why not?
There you go. Fuck it.
Yeah, yeah,
Fuck it up, brother.
you know, yeah. Well, he had no dick, man. Put that one on my tombstone as well.
There you go.
Alfred Hitchcock had
That
no
tombstone's
dick.
getting awful full. We're not gonna be able to put your name or your dates of birth or death at this point.
It's gonna be a tomb.
It's
It's
gonna
gonna
be
be
a
a whole
mausoleum.
tomb. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a big. I have talked about this very extensively. I mean, I'll be dead, so I don't know if people will actually do it, but
Yeah, it's not your problem anymore at that
um,
point.
well, I would hope that I'm gonna haunt anybody that doesn't do it, so they better fucking do it. I will
Aw.
come back and
That
get
way,
my
if we
revenge.
miss you, we just have to intentionally get your last wishes wrong, and we'll see you all the time.
Yeah, if you want to see me again, just smash up my mausoleum and I'll fucking haunt you.
I'll be getting out of the shower one day, and I'll like clear the fog off of the mirror, and you'll just be there behind me, looking all menacing, and I'll be like, Dylan, you're back.
Just be giving you the finger. I'm like, what the fuck, dude?
God damn it.
Went to my mausoleum the other day, and the door was open.
You let
You know about
the,
that, Corey?
you're letting all the air out.
Yeah, you don't know the air in. I don't want the air in there.
You
I'm
don't want.
dead.
Oh, I thought you were wanting like air conditioning in there. A nice cool
I don't need it.
mausoleum.
I'm dead. Won't have any. Famously, dead bodies don't have a whole lot of need for air.
That's true.
So
So kind of going back to the whole like Deathstroke the Terminator conversation, I read that book
Okay.
for like 20 some issues, and I'm like thinking back
Mhm.
now, like what was it specifically that I was like wanting to read about it, because I never came away with a good feeling. Like every issue I
Yeah.
came away going, wow, Slade Wilson is a terrible fucking person. And like
Yeah.
you like, and it did a great job. Maybe that was what it was. Is that it was a comic about family, and like the impact it was, because it would like there'd be sections of it dedicated to Rose and sections of it dedicated to Jericho, and you could see like how they were as their young adult selves, and like what growing up with Slade as a dad was like for them, and like the impact it had on him. Where like Jericho had like a secret homosexual relationship with one of his dad's former partners, and
Mm.
Rose was like her like Deathstroke's wife, who you see throughout the issue, wasn't Rose's mom. Her mom was a woman from Cambodia, I believe, and like how she
Okay.
was kind of treated as an out, like treated poorly by that woman because of that reason, because it was just another reminder that Slade Wilson can't keep it in his pants.
Hmm.
So like there definitely did play on like you know Slade, his behaviors and his actions definitely had impacts on his children's upbringing for sure. I don't know, maybe that's what it was. Is like the family dynamics were really well written, and that's what was kind of drawing me in.
Right. It's nothing to do with him
Yeah, it had very little to do with
um
Slade, even though he was the main
specifically.
character.
Yeah. Right, but like the story in its core was about like a family dynamic, and to make that interesting, you do need to have some member of the family be a total raging asshole.
Yeah,
Because if you like, if it's a comic about family dynamics, and the family are already nice and friendly to each other and they love each other, you're like, okay, I'm gonna read 20 issues of this. I don't know about that. Like,
yeah, yeah. Well,
what's
like
the hook?
so the parent, so Slade is Slade Wilson, fucking terrible. But like like it was full of really good action sequences and stuff because Slade's a mercenary, so like it was really well done in that regard. His wife worked for the government, and she would turn up, and it was never a good time when she turned up, because they had a very hateful dynamic, mainly because his son, I believe Garrett, I want to say it was his name, but he was Ravager. Ravager died because of Slade, and Jericho and his dad were not really even communicating. But like Slade was sleeping with Jericho's fiance because she was a spy that was being basically positioned to pretend to be marrying Jericho so that she could spy on Slade. And Jericho was sleeping with one of his dad's former partners. And it was implied that they were even doing that when Jericho was a teenager. And yeah, Rose was the one who had like almost the least to do, but the one that Slade kept checking in on the most. So yeah, no, I mean it was like I said, it was Christopher Priest, who's a great writer. If you've not read anything by Priest, look him up. Like if he's not already done a Daredevil run, he'd be perfect for one.
Okay.
I don't know if that does anything for you. I'm not sure if you're a Daredevil guy. I know that's more John's thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever read a Daredevil comic. So,
Well, don't say that
you
too loud.
know.
John might turn up from the police station upset with us.
Well, he's still gonna be there for a couple of hours, I'd say. He's got a lot of paperwork to fill out.
So, I guess what we're coming to is the kind of necessariness of like you can write about terrible characters, but there needs to be a good hook to them because no one just wants to read about terrible characters.
Right. Exactly. Like that's what we were saying about Breaking Bad. Like
Yeah.
it's the story. Like if you just had two horrible people selling meth, you're like, oh, all right. But it's like the actual story around it. Like there's intrigue and there's like, is he gonna get caught? Is there what's gonna happen? There's stuff that happens that makes you want to keep watching the show. It's not just a man selling meth to people because you're like that would get old very quickly.
Yeah.
You know. There's always a hook. You ever read A Clockwork Orange?
Yes.
I assume you've seen the film.
Yes.
Yes. Well, you would know that in The Clockwork Orange, it was a book first, and then it was a film, as
Yes.
is quite a common practice. And that guy is incredibly unlikable.
Oh yeah, Alex Delarge is considered one of the worst human beings ever.
I think he's a horrible, horrible
He loves
person.
violence and rape.
Uh, and yet they made a whole book and film about it, and people watched that film, and people loved that film. Now, do they love that film because they love him, or do they love that film because it's just a fascinating look into like somebody that they would have no somebody that's like the complete opposite of them. You look at that guy and go, I wouldn't do any of that shit. You're a horrible person. Like, is that part of it? Is it a look into like a completely other side of life that people aren't used to?
Well, add to that, I suppose. Um, it was kind of like we talked about, where sometimes people read stuff and they come away with the wrong they come away with the wrong feeling about it, because it's like they don't
Yes.
have enough media literacy to piece why they feel certain ways about certain things, and they just kind of like smush together their own idea. Case in point,
Yeah.
I always call it the Rorschach effect, where if you walk away from Watchmen and you feel like Rorschach is a great character, and it's like, no, he's a smelly, weird man who's a conservative and has a lot of really weird political
Yes.
opinions. He has the most conviction
I
of
was kind
everyone, but conviction doesn't always mean it's a
yes.
good thing.
Right. Like misplaced conviction can be pretty
Devastating.
deadly. Yes. So I was gonna bring up Watchmen earlier because we were talking about that. I've been I've been thinking about Watchmen a lot recently.
Awful lot lately.
The weight on my mind. And just I don't know, very recently it's just kind of been just wasn't, especially the film for some reason. I don't know, maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe that would be a fun topic to talk about. I don't know. But I was gonna talk about that because I had been thinking about it recently about how a lot of the characters were quite flawed. But I think that's a different thing. The whole point of Watchmen is that you're not supposed to empathize with them, but you're also not supposed to hate all of them either. They all had like their own good and bad qualities. They were
Yeah.
all built to be very human and very like flawed characters. All of them were very flawed characters. So you never really like this one's my favorite. It was always kind of like, well, this guy did this, but also he's a jerk, or this guy kind of acted like this, but also you can see why they did that. There is a level of empathy there, but there's also a level of like contempt because you do look at all those characters and go, I'm not like this person in this specific way, but I can understand the situation they're in and I can understand them feeling like this at this moment, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's different. I think that's just good, very good writing, honestly, to make all of these very tragic, flawed characters who are all also very different from each other.
Yes.
I think that's what are we talking like five or six main characters
Pretty much.
that are all kind of horrible in like very different ways.
Yeah. They're pathetic, pitiful, outright terrible.
Egotistical,
Yeah.
just fucking wimpish and spineless, or just abrasive and self-centered, or just like total lack of empathy. There's like all of these things, but they're also so well written that you're like, well, I care about these characters even if it's not necessarily like an empathetic thing. Um, although speaking about that, there was did you ever see that film, The Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah.
I went to see it with my friends like years whenever it came out in the cinema. Like anybody who watched that film would go, that guy's a fucking asshole, right? That the whole film, the whole 2.5 hour film is just about this guy being a fucking asshole, and then eventually getting the repercussions of his actions. Like that's the whole film.
Yeah.
And one of the guys comes out of the cinema is like, you know what, I already liked. And I'm like, you better not say what I think you're gonna say. He's like, I really like that guy. He's really driven. He knew what he wanted. He
Yeah.
knew what he wanted. He really got it. I'm like, you're not
There's
supposed to empathize with the guy.
there's certain people who do empathize with characters like that, and I think it's because they themselves have something that is so inherently broken or missing inside of their own lives, where they do wish they could have, like, I wish I could have unchecked power or unchecked
Yeah,
influence, and like I wish that
yeah,
morals weren't a thing. And it's like whenever you find that out, you're like, cool, that's another person I don't want to associate with. It's sort of like a litmus
yeah,
test of people you want in your life, which is amazing. So, like, the most
yeah.
recent example of this, so the show The Boys just ended, and The Boys television
Yes.
show is different from The Boys comic, as is often the case with Garth Ennis's book, because there's even a limitation to what television and movies can do with his work. But a
Mhm.
lot of people were very upset with how they killed off the main antagonist of the show, the Homelander. This isn't going to be spoilers, because at this point when this comes out, it's going to have been like 2-3 weeks, and that shit was online 5 minutes after it happened. Grow up. But
It's,
essentially,
it's been 7 years.
through MacGuffins and Deus Ex Machina, um, Homelander is stripped of his powers and very pathetically tries to jump up to fly and can't, and realizes that he's fucked and proceeds to get dog walked by Carl Urban's character with a crowbar. And he's begging for his life and like pleading with him and saying, "I'll fucking suck your dick. I will eat shit for you. If you shit right now, I'll eat it for you," before he gets his head caved in with a crowbar. And a lot of Homelander fans and a lot of Boys fans were very upset that the character died in such a pitiful manner. They're like, he needed a much bigger send-off, or he was redeemable. And it's like, not really, because I didn't watch The Boys because I'm familiar enough with Garth Ennis's work to be like, not for me. But
Yep.
exactly, not for me. Mr. Ennis has a feeling about superheroes, and he has no problem letting people know about it. But anyway,
Yes.
Homelander has been through 5 seasons of the show, shown to be vain, murderous, pathetic, pitiful, cowardly, advantageous, opportunistic. Nothing really suggesting that he would be, in a moment where he realized he didn't have his powers, which he's been relying on for all of his fear and intimidation, would still put up a good fight. That's one thing. And then, two, like, you should want to see him get that comeuppance like that. Because I feel like
Yes.
I feel like, to be broad
That's the show.
generalization, a normal person would be like, wow, this guy who has been intermittently killing off people who disagreed with him and bullying his way and positioning himself as this egotistical fascist, like, he should go out in the most punk way possible, like the most piss poor baby shit way possible. That's the way he needs to go because it's fitting.
Yeah.
But again,
Yes. 100%.
there's a certain subsect of people who saw like unchecked power and being able to do whatever you wanted and went, that's what I want. I want to be able to put people under my thumb.
Yeah. It does say a lot about the human condition, where you see people who come away with. Well, we were talking about that with Zack Snyder reading Watchmen, and evidently his take on the comic seemed to miss a lot of the finer points of it,
Right.
and the nuance, and to just go like, "Oh, fighting is cool." You're like, "Oh, interesting."
How do you
We
took
can
that
show
from
this
it?
blue guy with this dick card. You're like, I don't think that's the point of the show. There's a lot more to it than the blue guy with his dick card. But to the point where like I realized when I'd read the book, I'm like, I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
I didn't even. I don't remember seeing his dick at all. If I did, I don't remember. I'm gonna have to go back and have a look for it. But um, it's interesting the way that some people like you said, the way that some people interpret media is quite alarming, and
Fascinating.
also a very good way to explain
Current events.
2026.
Current
Yeah,
events.
well, this is all starting to make a lot more sense once you realize that people watched the Joker film and thought, I like that guy.
Or watched Wolf of Wall Street, like you pointed out, and said, I like that guy.
I like that guy.
Or
I
watched The
wish I was
Boys
more
and
like
said,
that
I
guy.
like Homelander.
Yeah, I like this horrible fucking person. Yeah, yeah. That's life.
That certainly
Isn't
is.
it?
So it's weird. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we came about to a really strange conclusion of like, can you read something and follow characters who are completely irredeemable? And we ended up with talking about how there is a certain subsect of people that love the worst characters imaginable only because they have power like trip fantasies. So I guess there
Yeah.
are people out there that would read Odin and legitimately feel bad for these neo Nazis.
Yes, I think so. I think there probably are gonna be people that are like, "Why are you being so mean to the Nazis?"
Why are you
Like,
being so mean to the neo Nazis?
yeah, they're not real Nazis, so
I actually saw this thing recently where someone was like, "See, this is why gatekeeping is important because you have to keep people like that out." The Laundromat recently canceled a show because they found out one of the bands playing were very alt right, and they said, "Nope, whole show's canceled." So yeah, no,
It,
you gotta gatekeep your community. Let that be the lesson out there. If you're gonna take anything from an episode of the Smart Avengers, gatekeep your communities. Keep the fuckers out.
no, no. It's that fucking Alfred Hitchcock.
No, fuck Alfred Hitchcock. One, two. Keep the neo Nazis out of your community.
Yeah, yeah. We're very wise.
I think we are. We got a lot of wisdom in us.
I think so. I think more people should listen to the show, and if people listen to the show and empathize with us more, then maybe things would change. You
I
know?
think John's been holding us back. Like we came to this socio-political platform in his absence. So I think John's the one holding us
Hmm.
back.
Yes, because whenever me and John do an episode, it's about Kitty Perry and
And hot
space
dogs.
and hot dogs. We got really like deep and intelligent and like what philosophically, what do you think? We didn't talk about hot dogs at all.
We did not talk about hot dogs at all. It's not too late though if you want to.
Do you have IKEA in America?
We do have IKEA in America. There's an IKEA in Columbus actually.
Apparently they pronounce it IKEA.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, we
I
were
mean,
at IKEA
well, I mean, I wouldn't
recently,
put it
and
past
then
our country to mispronounce something that comes from another land.
well, our company does it too. Um, and then on the way out, they're like, "You want a hot dog?" You can just like you can go the whole shop, and then just on the way out, they're like, "By the way, you might want a hot dog." I'm like, "Oh,
We have Costco, which does the same thing. But that's like a big box retailer, but you can get like a hot dog for like $1.50.
yeah." This I think this was like a pine for the hot dog. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
"Hey,
Apparently, like the
yeah."
CEO of Costco was like insistent that the price never changes on the hot dog.
Can I just tell you, man, real quick. You know, if you buy a hot dog that costs £1, like you know exactly what that hot dog is gonna taste like.
I'm vegan again, so I don't have to worry about this.
Corey, I think you're okay.
Yeah.
What the fuck is in a hot dog? I don't know.
Who knows?
But like, you just know exactly what a £1 hot dog's gonna taste like. And then we got the £1 hot dog, and you know what it tasted like?
1 pound hot dog.
Exactly what a £1 hot dog tastes like. And sometimes that's just what you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you just like, I just really right now I really want a £1 hot dog. You know?
Imagine it's kind of like pizza. There's no such thing as a bad piece of pizza. Like if you know it's a
There
1 pound
is
hot dog.
100%.
Oh, where is it?
There's definitely bad pizza, for sure.
Oh, fair enough.
But I feel like to that point, it's like, I really like going out to like proper pizza places, like homemade pizza places, real ass grown pizza places, right? I don't like going to chains. But
Same.
some days you're just like, I really want a Domino's. I'm just in the mood for a stinky ass Domino
Yeah,
pizza.
yeah.
I know it's gonna suck. Because I'll tell you this, I think the part of it is like the consistency. Like a Domino's pizza always
You know what
tastes like
you're
a
gonna
Domino's
get.
pizza.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, you
yeah, yeah. It's the
it'll
same as
disappoint, right?
it's the same at Pizza
But
Hut and
that's
Papa John's.
yeah, you
There's
know what you're getting.
there's a strong
You're getting
likelihood
that
I'm gonna feel
specific,
sick after this.
yeah, but you're getting that specific taste that you can only get in this one place.
Yeah,
It's like McDonald's. McDonald's burgers don't taste like any burger you've ever had in your life. They only McDonald's does a burger like that. And it's so then whenever you come out of it, you're like, oh, I really want this one specific thing that can only get in this one specific place. It's very clever marketing.
it's weird. The Sprite is the same way. McDonald's Sprite is one of those things that people like get really impassioned about. Because like if you've been at a concert and you get out of the concert, it's like 11 o'clock. By the time you get through traffic, it's already getting closer to midnight. You know McDonald's is open 24/7. You're dying of thirst because you didn't want to spend $12 for a bottle of water at the venue. $1.99
Logical.
McDonald's Sprite hits you
Yeah.
right in the soul.
Well, see, I'm like, I don't like yeah, Sprite I think's different because I don't like getting Diet Coke out of those chain places because
Yeah,
it's really like it's either really syrupy or it's really watered down.
yeah,
Whereas the Sprite is just the Sprite. It's just Sprite.
yeah. It's weird.
Always Sprite. Because maybe you can't water Sprite down. I don't know. What is it? We'll never know.
So how
Some
many
sort
movies?
of magical.
How many movies do you think John's watched so far this year?
Or or
We're getting towards the end of May. When this comes out, I think it will officially be middle of June. So I want to say that John's probably already hit 520 at this point.
wasn't he at 700 and something?
No, he's not at 700 yet.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, well, I just haven't been paying attention to our show that we do.
You're just waiting for you to do your plug, which is coincidentally now. Dylan, what do you get up to during the week?
Don't you want to say? Do you want to like at least like humor John a little bit and shout out his letterbox?
Oh, yeah, we'll do that. If you want to see what John's been watching, or if you just want to read all 4 of his Despicable Me reviews, you'll find a link in our description, but he's letterbox.com/Big John Bowski, all one word.
Do you think people are gonna write Big John Bowski all one word and then be like, "It's not coming up"?
Well, I was thinking maybe the reason he says it like that is because they'll put big space John space Balbowski, and then however many spaces they
Okay,
discern Big Balbowski needs.
I think it's the opposite. I think that because he says it all the time in the same way that they're gonna write the whole thing in.
Do you think that John named himself after the character from The Big Lebowski, or is he just a very big fan of Val Venus?
Do you think the Big Lebowski was based on John?
Do you think The Big Lebowski was based on Val Venus?
You you think the film is based on Val Venus?
Might be. I mean, he was the Big Valbowski.
Yeah. Do you know
Do you
when the
remember
film
when
came out?
do you remember when they called him that for a short period of time? Like they were billing him as the Big
Yes.
Valbowski. That was weird.
Yes. I mean, well, the whole thing was weird.
I feel like this is the most anyone's talked about Val Venus, not related to his weird conspiracy theories or marijuana consumption, in quite some time.
Well, he was beefing with MJF very recently.
Who isn't?
Hmm, fair point.
Yeah, like you do.
I feel like if you're getting Val Venus angry at you, you're like probably misplaced.
Yeah, exactly. That's just
Your
low hanging fruit at this point. You could try
yeah.
better.
I reckon anybody could piss off Val Venus.
It
Are
was
you
like that
kidding
period
me?
of time where people would just try to rile up Glenn Gilberti or Ryback. It's like, yeah, what are you really accomplishing?
Yeah. Well, you know. Mm, all right.
I feel like we lost
That's a
anyone.
little wrestling talk for
Yeah, I want to
everybody.
say I feel like we lost a
That,
bunch of people just then.
I
People are
assume
like,
that's getting
"What the
caught.
fuck's a Ryback?"
Who, what is Glenn Gilberti?
What's a Glenn Gilberti, and how can we make it stop?
What?
Hey Dylan, what do you get up to during the week?
Thank you for asking, Corey. I do, I do a radio show Monday nights, 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock UK time. You can listen to it online. It's on like your web browser, you type the thing in. BounceDigitalRadio.co.uk. 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, Monday nights. It's really fun. Stream on Twitch sometimes at Spooky LaRue where I draw pictures and then I animate those pictures. On YouTube, Team Crows and and on TikTok, Team Crows Studios. So you could subscribe or whatever. I don't.
All right. Well, I already talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this, but I have my other show, which is New Number Ones, which is every Sunday. We talk about a new number one. Episodes usually about 5-6 minutes long, kind of get in, get out. Whether or not I feel like it's a book that you should check out. All here on the YouTube channel. I also have my other show, Large Old Cup, which is a spoken word stream of consciousness kind of podcast where I kind of just go for about 28 minutes at a time and let my mind and my subconscious take me wherever it is I need to be. So you can check all of that out later. Cat Cam coming up. Yep. There he is.
He's got to get the cat cam.
He's been sleeping the whole time we've been recording. He just now woke up.
Once we start talking about Discomforto, he's like, "Hey, wrestling talk." Now we're
Yeah,
now
brother.
we're.
Yeah, brother. You know I hired him,
talk.
right? All right. Well,
Somebody had to.
Yep, somebody had to. All right. We'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Brr.
Gone?
He's back from the police station.